Welcome to our drive-in theater. We have a wonderful evening's entertainment lined up for you, one that will provide several hours of pleasurable relaxation and diversion for you and your family. Did you fail to dress up for tonight's show? No tie, an old shirt and slacks, a house dress? Well, don't give it a thought. We're glad you came as you are.
It's Driveway Drive-In with your hosts, Adam and Paul. Welcome to the Monster Home.
It happened every time the moon was full. Nobody knew who or what was responsible. They only knew it had to be stopped. Stephen King's Silver Bullet.
Starts Friday at a theater near you. Consult local listing.
Hey, Paul.
Yo.
I want to talk to you about something. I want to talk about werewolves.
Werewolves?
And in particular, werewolf movies. You a fan?
I am.
Werewolves are probably my favorite movie monster ever since I was a kid.
Yeah.
I've seen quite a few werewolf movies over the years. I don't know. Want to talk about them?
Yeah, so the werewolf is an iconic monster, one of the first monsters to grace the screen. You have the classic Wolfman with Lon Chaney Jr.
Right.
You have
plenty more. You have American Werewolf in London. My personal favorite, up there with one of my favorite movies of all time. But you know, there's a bunch of werewolf movies in cinema.
There are. I would actually go so far to say that werewolves movies are probably the best of the classic monster movies.
Yeah, probably.
There's probably more werewolf movies that I love than any other of like the standard classic monsters. I mean, I'm not a crazy big vampire fan to begin with.
I think you are. I just don't think you like the movies that are made from them.
No. I like the idea of a vampire, but...
That'll be an interesting podcast when we dissect that.
Yeah, but for the most part, vampire movies just kind of, I don't know, don't do anything for me.
Yeah.
But wolves, on the other hand, you know, I guess I like gory stuff, and I think that having a werewolf tends to lead to more gory movies.
Yeah, it can.
I mean, because you always have to have, like, the mauling and all that.
I like the mystique of both the vampire and the werewolf. I don't know what it is. It all comes down to, you know, growing up on Universal Monsters, okay? And when I was a kid, you know, I was a Halloween purist. And if you weren't going as a wolfman or a vampire or Frankenstein or the mummy, you know, if you were one of these heathens that were in a Jason mask or dressed as Freddy Krueger, you didn't really get Halloween to me. Looking back at that now, I realize what a pretentious 8-year-old I was.
You were.
But
you probably were having these conversations with the adults at the Halloween party.
And I have them at the VFW now, but that's neither here nor there. Whenever I watch horror movies, my favorite ones are always movies that kind of steer towards these classic monsters for some reason. It's just a nostalgic thing. But werewolves, to me, I just like the concept of a regular person changing into a monster. I just think that's when I was a kid, I thought that was such a cool concept, and as an adult, you know, not a lot has changed.
Yeah, no, I can accept that. And I always like the idea of, like, the separation of animal and man. I always find that kind of fun areas to work with. But another thing about werewolf movies, though, is that werewolf movies, when they're not particularly great in some aspects or kind of silly, tend to be better. Like, I think it's harder to make a good vampire movie than it is a good werewolf movie, because you have that animal attack, that natural fear, and you also have, like, the human element. You can get away with a sympathetic werewolf like David in American Werewolf, or, you know, Lon Chaney, obviously, and the Wolfman. Or you can get into werewolves that are not sympathetic at all, like Wolfen, Dog Soldiers.
Sure. I think with Dog Soldiers, I think it's... If you see the human side to the werewolves, it almost always lends to you feeling sympathy in one stretch or... in some capacity, I should say.
Yeah.
Dog soldiers, you never see them as humans. So I think that kind of, they're just, the monsters, from the get-go. And you never see the human side. So, I mean, they might as well be, any other monster. And it's top 5 werewolf movie to me. And I'm not talking down on that movie whatsoever.
Dog Soldiers is great. Another one would be... one that I think we'll be doing in our werewolf series soon is The Howling.
Yeah.
In The Howling, none of the werewolves are sympathetic.
No, not at all. That's a good... That you know what? That is probably, as far as mainstream werewolf movies go, that's a really good example, to your point, about unsympathetic werewolves. Because I do think the vast majority of them are kind of sympathetic. They're not all portrayed, especially when they're humans, as being sinister. That's probably one of the only films that really just... portrays all of the werewolves, even when they're in their human form, as being, evildoers.
Yeah. So why don't we do a werewolf double feature? I'll do The Howling.
It's a good idea.
We'll do The Howling.
So I get to pick this week?
You get to pick this week.
Let me pick. Now, one of the things I like about werewolf movies and vampire movies, for that matter, is that for the most part, across the gamut, they all respect the same mythology, wouldn't you say? I mean, there are slight alterations.
Yeah, there's always going to be, especially in the Hammer Dracula.
Don't even get me started.
With the running water, weeds. And...
Dracula got killed by a jaggerbush.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm from Pittsburgh. Thorn bush. He gets killed by a thorn bush in one.
Yeah, it just was like, you start to wonder towards the end of the Hammer Dracula series, was there anything that couldn't kill
at one
or
point?
stop
Yeah,
Dracula?
at one point he was almost as mortal as me.
Yeah. I mean, he has very specific weaknesses.
Thorn bush. I mean, I can survive that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe I'm more invulnerable than Dracula is. I can go through a thorn bush.
Yeah.
For crying out loud, I have.
Yeah. God bless.
I used to dive into them for fun.
God bless Christopher Lee. But yeah, Dracula. The Hammer films tend to run away with the mythology a little bit.
They got a little too ahead of themselves.
Well, even their werewolf movie was Curse of the Werewolf, and that one was like...
That one's so bizarre. It's the only Hammer werewolf movie, too, which is just like, why?
And
it's not like you perfected it off the first movie. I used to own that movie on VHS, and I still to this day, I don't know how the guy turned into a werewolf. It's not the typical you get bitten, that's for sure.
Yeah.
His mother was incarcerated. She was incarcerated. She was in a dungeon. It was a very castle freak in that regard. And there was a vagrant who had been there for years and years and years who ended up raping her. And then she gave birth to him on Christmas Day. And it's just they don't really say why he's a werewolf other than, man, you had a really bad backstory. So I guess you're a werewolf now. Yeah. So, as a kid, I just didn't buy it because it didn't fall into the mythology that I had already come to know and love.
Yeah.
And it still doesn't make any sense to me.
No, and it's too bad because Oliver Reed made a great werewolf.
Yeah, if you're going to cast, good casting.
Yeah.
Oliver Reed, he's terrifying. A great casting decision for anyone about to make a werewolf movie. the guy who's going to be your werewolf should just be just as intimidating as a human character as he is as a werewolf.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're going the complete sympathy card, like they did with David in American Werewolf or Lon Chaney. But anyway, I like your idea of doing the double feature movies, and you're going to be surprised about the one I picked because you've known me for a really long time, and you know that
American Werewolf.
It's not. It's not. I'm not going with that one. I'm not ready to talk about that one yet. I'm just not. That's one of my favorite movies of all time, and I can't. Just not ready for that one. I'm actually going to go with probably my second favorite werewolf movie. I don't know. I'm going to have to think about that. But it's one that nostalgia meter is high. It's a 10 out of 10. Silver Bullet.
Gary Busey.
Yes, it has the Busey factor. So you do have that. 1985's Silver Bullet, which was, of course, based off of a book from Stephen King's Cycle of the Werewolf.
That was actually one of the books that, like, one of the only Stephen King books we were allowed to get from the library. They let us get it, I think, because it had pictures in it. But I remember the pictures being horrific.
Yeah.
Specifically one with, like, slaughtered pigs.
Yeah, you showed me that picture.
Yeah, I did.
That picture is terrible.
It is. And I was just like, I remember just being extremely disturbed by it. But I think I was like maybe 10 years old when I was reading that. I want to say like fifth grade. So yeah, probably about 10.
Yeah, I saw the movie before I looked at the book.
Well, honestly, I didn't even know that the movie was based off the book when I was a kid.
Yeah, that makes sense because Cycle of the Werewolf versus Silver Bullet.
Yeah, and I used to watch it on TV a lot. It was on like one of our local stations. It would play, a couple times a year. Right. And I would usually watch it then. I always really liked it. There's a couple things about it that kind of make me scratch my head. But
me too. I mean, and I love it probably more than you do. I mean, but I can even, and we'll go through these, but I mean, I can admit that I look at a movie like this through, nostalgia-colored glasses. I grew up with it, so I love it. But looking at it now, I mean, it's an imperfect film, to say the least, and we'll get into its flaws. I still think it's a quality movie. Like I said, I mean, I probably already said this is my second favorite werewolf movie of all time, and it's probably one of the werewolf movies where you see the werewolf the least, which can be problematic, but we'll get into that.
All right. Well, why don't I go ahead and pull up a clip. This clip will be... it's a narrator, this is a short clip with a narrator just kind of giving us the backstory of the story, and we'll be right back with the plot.
The last full moon of that spring came a little more than a month before school let out for summer vacation. Our town's long nightmare began that night.
It's not bitter, not sweet. It's a real frosty treat. Won't you buy Rheingold beer? Won't you try? Won't you buy? Jesus, Arnie. What are you, afraid of the boogeyman? God. Come on out there, Buster, and give me a hand. some Rheingold. When do you want to get ready? As soon as I get the dirt out there.
The killing had begun. But at first, no one knew it. You see, Arnie Westrom was a chronic drunk, and what happened seemed like an accident. The county coroner concluded that Arnie had passed out on the tracks. There wasn't enough evidence to conclude anything else.
So yes, the narrator is the sister Janie in the movie. Her brother Marty is the protagonist of the story, and it's kind of told from their perspectives,
right,
throughout the story. Kind of gives almost like an Amblin feel to it, almost like a Spielberg feel.
Yeah, it's like if Amblin Entertainment made a werewolf movie. It's a little off. It's a little weird at first, even when the credits are rolling. And this is after the sudden demise of Arnie, the railroad worker who gets his head, decapitated.
Yeah.
And then we see the full moon and it says Silver Bullet, and then the music starts playing, and the music is like this very schmaltzy, kind of like fluty. Almost sounds like Princess Bride or something. Like, I'm like, okay.
It sounds like you're not going to watch Werewolf.
Is the werewolf going to teach me life lessons, or what's happening? It's almost like they didn't know if they wanted to make a horror movie or like a coming-of-age tale, in a way. I mean, it's both, but...
Yeah, and it's got a lot of the familiar Stephen King, tropes in it. You have the kids, nobody believes them. And
also very Amblin tropes.
Yeah.
I mean, E.T., etc., etc.
But, so yes, there is a town, a werewolf is killing people.
Right. Janie's the narrator, so we know she lives.
Yeah.
We know, spoiler.
Yeah.
Janie's talking to you in the beginning of the movie.
As an adult.
Sounding like Agatha Christie or something. So she must have lived to a very old age.
She must have.
Because she's a teenager in the film. Marty is her brother, who is in a wheelchair, so he is a paraplegic.
Correct.
And that's played by Corey Haim.
Yes. Who was probably the biggest star in this movie.
Gary Busey.
Gary Busey.
Come on.
Well, this was like...
Gary Busey was a huge... No, this is down... Gary Busey had already been on that mountain. He was on his slide down. I mean, you could totally tell in the movie.
No.
Yes.
His peak was Under Siege.
When was that made?
Like late 90s.
Was it?
Yeah,
that was
or mid-90s.
Wait a minute. Under Siege was his peak?
Under Siege's peak.
I don't think that's his peak. I think Lethal Weapon is his peak.
Well, yeah, that's probably his peak.
But Corey Haim, I mean, kind of a tragic life of this poor guy. But I'll say this. I have my top 10 vampire list. I got my top 10 werewolf list. They're in my wallet at all times. So if you ever see me walking on the street and you want to see them, I'll give them to you. Just ask. He's a top 5 werewolf guy with Silver Bullet. He's a top 5 vampire guy. Maybe a top 1 guy with vampires, with the Lost Boys. I mean, that's a career.
Yeah.
But anyways,
so let's go into the story. So we have kind of an air of mystery. The trailer actually gives away who the werewolf is, so we're going to have spoilers in it in this episode.
We debated on whether we were going to give out who the actual werewolf was, because the beginning of the movie kind of feels like a whodunit.
Yeah.
But they tell you who the werewolf is in like the first 30 minutes. So
yeah, and it's kind of obvious if you're paying attention to the movie. So the first death is Arnie on the railroads. The second death we see is...
oh, yeah, that was Marty's friend. What the heck was his name?
No, not Marty's friend was the second. The second was the pregnant lady.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right.
Yeah, and this movie breaks every rule in cinema by mercilessly slaughtering a pregnant woman.
Yeah. So, in the beginning of the movie, right after Arnie gets killed, Arnie, railroad guy, decapitated, there's like a festival in the Times Square. What was that for?
I don't know. It might have been...
It didn't really... Yeah, maybe. I don't know. They're just all celebrating living there, I guess. But, that's when we're introduced to most of the main characters. And, the fact that Marty and Janie don't really get along because Marty and his friend, trick her into falling into like a puddle of mud, and she gets her dress all covered with filth, and she's very upset about it.
And she's just always felt like her parents are pushing her off onto him because he's in a wheelchair.
Yeah. Anyway, it gets very Lifetime networky in that one scene, just because as she's walking away and trying to clean her dress or whatever, she sees those like a couple arguing about the pregnancy, a pregnancy, and the guy's basically just like, yeah, beat it, toots, remember the good times, and she's like, what am I supposed to do? And crying on the bench, and that kind of leads us to the I guess the second kill that we see in the movie.
Yeah, so, and that's probably the biggest kill in the movie. I would say it's probably the most graphic.
Yeah, for sure.
And
she's going to kill herself.
Yeah, she's about to commit suicide, and the werewolf breaks in.
Right.
And decides to just do the job for her.
She's got the pills on the fancy china.
She does. She has
down in the pills with the wine.
I mean, if you're going to go out, to break out the good china.
Yeah, she wasn't like they were hors d'oeuvres or something.
Yeah, but she did use like the yard sale glass for her water. She didn't break out the good crystal.
No, it wasn't. Yeah.
She's like, the fancy plate's enough.
Yeah. This scene kind of shows. I said this werewolf is the most slasher of all werewolf movies that I've seen. He doesn't kill. He kills almost with a human instinct. He's not just a wild animal. Like he climbs up like a, what is it, like the trestle thing.
He does
to get to her window. I mean, he's not just... A lot of werewolf movies, they just show them as, like, mindless monsters. This werewolf has intelligence enough to, formulate a plan to kill you.
Yeah, and that was his plan, was to kill her.
Right.
I don't know how he knew she was going to kill herself, but...
Yeah, that's... Not really ever specified. But he does bust through the window, and, it's a pretty terrifying scene. He's basically, ripping her apart with his claws. And a lot of graphic scenes of, like, just his claws, like, going through her back. And
yeah.
It's really gory.
I mean, it's probably, apart from a later scene, the biggest effect shot in the effects scene.
And they never ever really show the werewolf. It's just quick cut shots.
Yes.
I'd almost like the shower scene in Psycho. And you see the claws, and it flashes to her back, and it flashes to the werewolf's eyes. You do see the werewolf's eyes, but you never really see what the werewolf looks like. And it's very, it's like one of those scenes where I think you feel like you see a lot more than what is actually portrayed.
Yeah, and it's after this scene... where we're introduced to Gary Busey's character, Uncle Red, and or Uncle Adam. And
so Uncle Red and Uncle Adam are both black sheeps of the family that probably drink a little too much but have good intentions.
They do, and he's a great uncle.
See? Hear that? Mom and Dad? No, I was kidding.
Oh, I agree. Well, you're an uncle to my kiddo.
Yeah, there you go.
So
I try.
You know.
But we're going to play the clip where we're introduced to Uncle Red, because this is Gary Busey's character in a nutshell, and probably Gary Busey in a nutshell.
It really is. So why don't I go ahead and pull that up?
There's a guy sitting in the bar. Bartender says, "Hey, jackass, give me a drink." So the bartender pours him a drink. He drinks it. Sits there for a while. Says, "Hey, jackass, pour me another drink." So he pours another drink. The guy gets up and leaves. The guy that's sitting there says, "Hey, why do you let him call you jackass all the time?" The bartender says, "Oh, he always calls me that." It's good, isn't it?
Yeah.
You might as well fold because you don't stand a Chinaman's chance.
Yeah. See ya. And I'll raise you this.
You can't bet managers. You can't bet managers.
Okay.
We said time and time again, you can't bet managers.
So I'll bet you a Yankee.
Piss on the Yankees, piss on the Indians, piss on the Phillies, piss on the Braves, piss on...
Mom, come on.
Whoa, man. Let him finish the game. Okay?
Make it quick.
Okay. What did you say, Yankees? Mm-hmm. See your Yankee? And I'll call you. I got 3 kings, read them and weep.
I got it straight to the queen.
That's bullshit luck. Bullshit luck.
That's enough.
I'm feeling this.
That's enough.
Hey, what? Can I at least say goodnight? Good night.
Ugh. Oh.
Good night.
Good night.
I'll see you later.
Yeah.
I'll see you in the morning.
Okay.
I'll see you in the morning.
Okay.
Wake me up.
Okay.
No, I'll wake you up.
Okay.
Okay.
Honey, ask your sister to help you. I'll be up in a minute.
I will.
Good night.
Ew.
I don't want you drinking around Marty.
Don't be telling me what to do. You've been telling me what to do all my life.
Red, I don't care how you live, but he is a very impressionable little boy.
You know, you think your only responsibility is getting his butt out of the chair and into the tub and out of the chair and onto the toilet. And you ought to realize there's more to Marty than him not being able to walk.
So easy for you, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
You blow in here once a month, and you tell a few jokes, and you have a few beers, and then you want to lecture me about how to raise my son. Well, I am the one who is responsible for how he feels when he sees you like this, and how he feels when you leave. Red, Marty has enough strikes against him as it is.
He doesn't have any strikes against him.
That I am scared to death that someday he is just going to give up.
He's not going to give up.
Well, he doesn't need you showing him how to do it.
Another wonderful night here at Sister Nan's.
So there's Uncle Red. And he brings his own booze to the house.
Which is great. It's wild turkey.
It's just sitting there chugging it on the couch.
Like straight from the bottle, not even pouring himself shots. No attempt to measure.
Listening to the mom, you might think she's overreacting, but he's sitting there chugging like whiskey.
Chugging whiskey. And, he's... But there's definitely a warmness about him, and
he's like a lost soul.
He is. So that's where we get into the third kill of the movie. Corey Haim had befriended a little girl who liked him, but her dad didn't, and the dad is the next victim. What can you say about the dad?
Well, first of all, the little girl's name was Emma.
Yeah.
She had a southern accent, and I was just puzzled by that because they're in Maine.
Yeah, they're
It's
in
like,
Maine.
did they move? I guess, I mean, hey, people have moved from the South to Maine before, but I kind of just feel like the actress just forgot what movie she was in. But,
yeah, well, maybe you should talk to, like, Gary Busey, because Gary Busey has a kind of a southern accent.
I don't even want to imagine that scenario. She was stuck in a trailer with Gary Busey.
Right?
Gary Busey, the dialect coach.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, the dad kind of has a southern accent.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Maybe they were from, just, hey, stranger things have happened. People from the South have moved to Maine before, I'm sure. But, he was very intolerant of Marty being in a wheelchair.
Yes.
That's putting it lightly.
And he didn't like the fact that his daughter gave him a kiss for riding her home.
He insinuated all handicapped people should be euthanized. Let's.
Well, yeah, that's pretty an extreme stance.
That's not.
Yeah,
that's not a stance to wouldn't want to die on that mountain.
No.
Die on that hill, whatever the expression is. But that being said, the scene where he's watching the professional wrestling is pretty funny.
It is.
And this is, leading up into his demise because, well, he's drunk. He's drunk off his butt.
Yeah, I mean, he's drinking pretty much from...
But he's acting like the wrestling's real, and it's kind of like, it's kind of charming in a way.
Yeah.
Like, is he that naive to think the professional wrestlers are actually fighting each other? Or is he just, I don't know. But, like, there's a part where, like, the one wrestler kicks the other wrestler, like, between the legs, and he's like, that hurts my parts.
It hurts my parts. Pretty great stuff.
But then he hears werewolf activity outside his house.
Yeah, and then he has like a wall of guns, and then he has like the world's most pathetic antlers.
Yeah, he got like 3 Elmer Fudd shotguns.
Yeah.
And then like a pair of tiny little antlers hanging above the door.
Yeah.
Which looks just like, something you'd wear on your head at a costume party or something.
Right. So,
but this is a pretty memorable death as well. This one kind of gets overlooked, I think, because he goes outside and he's investigating. I think his greenhouse or shed.
Yeah,
or whatever
he's got like a shed greenhouse that's like multiple levels too.
Yeah, it
which
seems
is
much
weird.
more sophisticated for a guy that thinks pro wrestling is real.
Pro wrestling is real, and handicapped people should be euthanized.
Right. It just doesn't seem like he should. It sounds like it's kind of like a shed that should belong to like a botanist or something. Not this guy.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's a really, and again, this goes to what I was saying before. Like, it's a werewolf movie, but he doesn't kill you like a werewolf. He comes up from underneath the ground. Like, he's very sneaky.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he chases anybody except when he's in human form.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I can't really tell, unless I'm missing something, like how he picks his victims. Is it just completely random, do you think?
No. He has...
the sixth sense of...
Yeah,
who's a jerk.
Yeah, kind of.
I have that.
You do.
I can tell who's a jerk.
Pretty much.
Talk to me for 5 minutes.
I know, and that's why Uncle Adam.
Read you like a book.
That's why Uncle Adam will be here whenever my daughter starts to date.
Yeah. Oh man, I would not want to be those kids coming to the door, seeing us two lunatics.
Yeah. My dream is to like recreate the scene from Bad Boys 2. But our own way. But
that's the demise of that character. And then I think...
and then, so we have that scene. Then we have the next scene is Marty is climbing a tree with, despite being paraplegic, to get a kite out of the wind or out of the windmill.
Yeah.
And
the core strength it must take to do that.
Yeah.
When you have no use of your legs.
Yeah, I mean, you're just basically using your arms.
Just reminds me, I need to get back to the gym.
Yeah, probably.
I don't have the core strength to take the trash out.
Right? Right? But you do have the core strength to get through the Jagger bush.
Well, that just takes perseverance.
Yeah.
And a lot of beer.
So yeah, we have that, and then we have the first kill that's off screen.
Mm.
And Marty's friend is killed for no real reason, I don't think, other than
yeah, he's like one of the he's kind of a jerk. He's kind of like he's the one that kind of pushes Marty into bad ideas, into like tricking his sister or tripping his sister into a puddle of mud. But ultimately, he's not like a bad kid.
No. And then, once the little boy dies, you don't actually see it. And they actually do like distant shots of the body because when the director had saw the fake body of the boy, he said it was the worst thing he's ever seen in his entire life and was panicking. So the actor that played the boy's father decided that he would just act horrified and they would never show it.
Best acting of the entire movie.
Yeah.
This guy brought it.
He did.
This guy that played this little boy's dad.
He did.
He brought it.
And then once they have this scene, then they have the funeral. They have like the town meeting in the local bar.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, a bunch of loudmouths at the bar. They're all drunk. And there's nothing like a bunch of loud drunk people who have all the answers to fix the world's problems. But it's basically the VFW command center.
Yeah.
And it's after the funeral, like you said, and it's the local sheriff comes in to try to talk the bar patrons into not going out on this rampage basically, and saying that it's this is street justice and street justice is against the law. And that's when this little boy's father comes in and basically does the Mrs. Kittner slapping Chief Brody scene from Jaws.
Yeah.
Basically just saying,
explain to my boy what street justice is.
Yeah, he's basically, giving him the hardcore guilt trip.
Yeah.
And telling him that, you should just let these yahoos go out with guns and go into the woods. So,
right.
So that's what the sheriff does.
And he does. And the priest tries to stop him.
Yeah. Inexplicably, Father Lowe tries to stop these guys from going after the killer.
And the bartender, real quick, is played by
Lawrence Turney.
Yes.
From, we know him from Reservoir Dogs, but he was quite famous from movies in like the 40s and 50s, I think, for like pulp movies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But Lawrence Turney was
the bartender, and he has a baseball bat that says the
What was his name in
Peacemaker.
Reservoir Dogs, though, just to give our listeners? He wasn't... Nice Guy Eddie was his son. He was
Joe.
Joe. He was Joe, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Wait till Joe gets here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's got the baseball bat that says Peacemaker.
Yeah.
Like carved into it, which is pretty BA.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is.
Because a lot of people get into it at this bar, mostly.
Well, that's where they have the town meeting.
Yeah, mostly talking
politics
crap about the sheriff.
Yeah.
And he's got to separate these loudmouths with the Peacemaker from time to time. So anyway, then they go out, and the Flannel Brigade go out looking for this werewolf in a very foggy forest setting.
Yeah, and I don't know why it's foggy other than atmosphere.
Yeah.
But, yeah, the fog is like waist high, so everybody can see each other, but they can't see the ground. And the werewolf attacks a group of hunters, and we kind of get the establishment of who the werewolf is after this.
He's like below them too, which is cool. He's like,
yeah, he's like
below the mist, which basically means even though he walks upright like the entire movie, like it's really creepy. So in this scene, you just know he's like crawling around like their legs and feet and stuff, and starts like attacking them. And the interesting thing about this scene is, again, he doesn't attack like a werewolf thinks that you would think a werewolf would. He actually goes after the bartender with the peacemaker back, gets that bat, the peacemaker. And that's basically how he kills like a lot of these people, is beating them to death with a baseball bat.
Yeah.
And this is a werewolf movie.
Yeah, it's a werewolf movie. So it's a little strange for it. I think maybe that's how you make werewolves, is by leaving survivors. And he doesn't
That
want
would be
another
interesting
werewolf.
if he's doing that so he doesn't
accidentally
create a new one.
Yeah. So, it's kind of an interesting thing. And then you have probably the biggest effect shot in there with the dream sequence.
Right. And this is when we do, and this is, I'm sorry, spoiler alert, I guess, but they show it in the trailer, and, this is middle of the movie. This is when they reveal the werewolf.
They do. And so the priest is having a dream where he's giving a sermon for like the 5 people that died, and the entire congregation starts turning into werewolves.
Yeah.
Which is kind of it's a really cool sequence, and all of the werewolves in that scene look better than the actual werewolf in the movie.
You know how I knew it was a dream? The entire church was packed.
Yeah.
When's the last time you went to church and it was...
Well,
not on a holiday. It wasn't Easter.
Well, it was a funeral for like 25% of the town.
Okay, all right, good point.
Yeah, I mean 25% of the town died in that like redneck rampage.
Yeah.
So
but it kind of gave away that the minister is the reverend is the werewolf.
It does.
And the Reverend Lowe character is played by Everett McGill. I don't know. The only other thing I've ever seen him in was Twin Peaks.
Yeah, and
I think he played the gas station owner in Twin Peaks, if I remember correctly. But he is spot on casting. We'll get into the special effects of the actual werewolf later in this podcast, but I'm of the opinion that they knew they were kind of subpar, and they knew that they were going to have to have an actor in there that really was intimidating and sinister and scary. And man, does he hit all the right notes as this character? I mean, he's more terrifying as a human being than he is as a werewolf, I think.
Absolutely. We find out this, and then the way that he's identified to the rest of the audience, they can't realize that if you're having a dream about the entire congregation turning into werewolves, when you haven't seen a werewolf as a character,
if you hadn't subtly picked up on that hint,
he is. He goes after Marty.
Okay, well, let's back up just a little bit. So, if we're going into that scene, so Uncle Red, so Marty already has a motorized wheelchair.
Yes,
but it's of the standard variety. Well, Uncle Red, being the reckless maniac that he is, basically converts. I don't even know how else to say it. It's the motorcycle version of a wheelchair, and it's got like the flames painted on the side and like silver. It's called Silver Bullet,
which is where the name of the movie comes from. I guess.
So this is like the state of the art wheelchair.
It's basically half wheelchair, half motorcycle.
Yeah.
And
as a kid looking at this for this first time, the coolness factor of a wheelchair. I mean, this was between Pee Wee's bike and like the DeLorean.
Yeah.
From Back to the Future. I mean, it was stuck somewhere in between those.
I mean, my daughter watched this part with us, and she said she wanted that wheelchair.
She was glued to the screen.
Yeah, she's like, "Oh, that's sweet."
Yeah, it is. It is sweet. It's a perfect description.
Yeah, and so he's out trying out his bike, and then it's the 4th of July, and the fireworks are canceled because the entire town's under curfew.
Canceled the July 4th fireworks. And the streets are empty.
Yeah.
Completely barren of life.
Yeah.
And I was just like, is this 1985 or 2020? Because...
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
well...
Current events,
Current events. So... So yeah, he's setting off fireworks on a bridge, and the werewolf sees him and goes after him, and then he launches a bottle rocket into his eye. And that's when the characters figure out who the werewolf is, because the only person in town with a fresh eye patch is Reverend Lowe.
Yeah, and that's a really drawn out scene, but it's really kind of effective because he tells his sister, who, his sister's always giving him a hard time, but he's so sincere in telling her that she kind of believes him. So as she's like going door to door to, I guess they were collecting recycling.
Yeah, they were collecting
for
recycling
the church drive or whatever it was.
For some type of drive.
Yeah, and she's going door to door to see like when they open up the door to hand them the recyclables, who's missing an eye or who has an eye patch or who has like a bandage. And she goes, I guess, throughout the entire town or, a good majority of it and doesn't see anything like that. So then she finally drops it off at the church and Reverend Lowe has the bandage on his eye. And
he also has the baseball bat.
Right. Because she goes into the garage where all the recyclables are, and it's like the peacemaker's buried in the, in the rubble there.
Yeah. So we have this scene with it, and the Reverend knows that he knows. So he's chasing the Marty character on his motorbike, and there's like kind of a high-speed chase.
Yeah. Before this, they were like sending him letters.
Yeah.
And they were like, Son of Sam, like serial killer letters where they're like, well, I guess, kidnapper letters where you like cut out the letters of a magazine.
Yeah.
So that they can't figure out your handwriting. And they were sending them these letters saying like, why don't you just kill yourself? We know what you are.
Yeah.
So this kind of like, poking the bear, as it were.
Yeah.
Like, why are you messing with this guy? Like,
yeah, and like my daughter was saying, "You're playing a dangerous game, messing with that werewolf."
Your daughter had a bunch of awesome one-liners during this film.
She did.
She's got to get her own podcast, I think.
She does.
So yeah, but then they have that really tense scene where like Marty he was like watching the Little League play, so he's going off on his own. And the Reverend, who's on to him, he knows that that's the guy sending him the letter. Like he's playing kind of like a cat and mouse game with his car, and eventually like tries to like run him off a bridge with it.
Yeah, and I'm gonna actually pull up the scene where Reverend Lowe.
He's got him cornered into like this covered bridge.
This covered bridge that's out.
And this monologue is great because it really just shows just how twisted this guy is.
Yeah, and
how he justifies his own existence as being a werewolf and, a
minister,
a reverend, right?
Okay, let me go ahead and pull that up.
Marty. I'm very sorry about this, Marty. I don't know if you believe that or not, but it's true. I would never willingly hurt a child.
Please, I won't tell anyone.
You should have left me alone, Marty. I can't kill myself. Our religion teaches that suicide is the greatest sin a man or a woman can commit. Stella was going to commit suicide, and if she had done so, she would be burning in hell right now. By killing her, I took her physical life, but I saved her life eternal. You see how all things serve the will and the mind of God. You see, you meddling little shit! You're gonna have a terrible accident, Marty. You're gonna fall in the river.
Mr. Zinnerman! Help me! Please! Help me! Mr. Zinnerman! Please! Mr. Zinnerman! I'm on the bridge! Help me! Please!
Hey, you, Marty?
So yeah, that's definitely a creepy scene.
Reverend Lowe kind of looking like the evil Superman from Superman 3.
Yeah, I mean, he does definitely have kind of a Christopher Reeves look to him. This kind of sets up the end of the movie.
And Marty not wearing a helmet at all during that sequence, by the way. The whole chase, and I know we just caught the end towards the bridge, but no helmet. The silver bullet goes like 50 miles an hour. I thought that was a little reckless of Uncle Red. Anyway, continue.
So this kind of sets up the end sequence of how Marty...
They talk Uncle Red into it.
Yeah, they talk...
You got to talk about the silver bullet. Tell them about the silver bullet, how they make the silver bullet.
Okay, so the kids get their silver necklaces off because it was the 80s. And you could buy like an actual silver necklace for children.
Yeah. And Uncle Red believes them even though he outwardly kind of acts like he doesn't.
Yeah, he does. They go to a gun shop. The mysterious gunsmith at this shop makes the bullet, the silver bullet for the werewolf. There's something about him that's very, very odd.
It almost sounds like he's battled werewolves before, or
yeah,
at least knows that they exist in this town. I don't know.
Yeah, he...
but it's never expanded upon, which I think it's in a way great because it just makes it more mysterious.
It does, but I kind of wish Stephen King would have done more with that character in like another story, you know?
Yeah.
But just a really cool character. So he gets the silver bullet. Werewolf shows up. They have the final battle, and everybody survives. So that's kind of the movie. You want to talk about the production of it?
Sure. Well, the producer was Dino De Laurentiis.
Yes.
Pretty high profile producer.
He was. And
good.
He did Halloween 2. He produced a lot of very popular movies. And he's also the father of that Giada De Laurentiis from the Food Network.
Well, anyway, he absolutely hated the werewolf suit.
Yes, and let's talk about the werewolf suit. So yeah, if you could imagine a bear and a dressing up as a wolf,
Smokey the Bear mating with Teddy Ruxpin.
Yeah, it's not the best werewolf design ever.
It's not intimidating whatsoever, and which is why you're kind of thankful when you see him at the end that they kind of hit him in the shadow throughout the entire movie.
Yeah, you're like, oh, that's why they're doing it this way.
Yeah. So anyway, the producer hated that suit so bad that he was actually it was a stalemate between him and, I looked up the designer of this suit, and I was expecting to find a nobody. It was this guy, Carlo Rambaldi. Now, he did effects for Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Alien, and E.T. He actually won Oscars for King Kong 1976. So I don't know what happened when he made this movie. I don't know if he just phoned it in.
Well,
had a bad fall.
They were fighting.
Hit his head.
They were fighting about this werewolf design, and King and Romaldi obviously loved it. And De Laurentiis was like, You can't put this in a movie.
He stalled production just to get them to change the suit at the end, and they refused to do it.
Yeah.
So he was basically being pressured to either cancel the entire production or accept the design.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
It is, especially when you see the design. You know, it's not like this is...
Yeah, the design looks like Chuck E. Cheese. Have you ever, when you were a kid and there was the robotic band up on the top, and they'd have like, if you gave the werewolf like a guitar and like a captain's hat and put up there with like Chuck E. Cheese and like that bird that danced and sang, he looked like an animatronic at Chuck E. Cheese.
I've seen scarier werewolves at Spirit Halloween stores.
Yeah, right. So I guess what we're trying to say is it didn't work. Now, the funny thing is that the werewolf effects leading up to the big reveal were great. The werewolf effects in the dream sequence.
The dream sequence and the transformation sequence.
Yeah, the transformation of Reverend Lowe into the werewolf and, back into Reverend Lowe is like flawless and looks great. It's just... when you actually see the werewolf, it's like you don't know if you want to run away or go like run up and cuddle with it and take a nap.
Yeah, it looks. I mean, the only werewolf that I think like standard werewolf costume that's kind of classic, is that looks worse and is worse in every single way possible is Paul Naschy's.
Oh, those movies. I can't stomach those movies. And then there's a lot of people that like them. I can't do it.
No, I can't either. Paul Naschy is usually just, I don't know.
He vanity project run amok.
Yeah, he looks like John Belushi's less successful brother.
Right.
And he makes these movies that I swear he just did so that...
He looks like your Uber driver.
Yeah. No, like, seriously. I don't know. I think he made the movies so that he could, like, have women be naked around him. Which is kind of the Paul Naschy movies. But enough about him. Let's talk about this movie. But I hate Paul Naschy.
Yeah, me too.
I really hate him.
Well, I don't hate the guy necessarily.
I don't hate the guy either.
His movies are really bad.
Yeah.
But anyways, it's another Stephen King adaptation that I think was made fairly well. If you grew up with it, you probably like it more than others, more than people that'll see it for the first time, especially because of that ending scene with the final reveal of the werewolf. However, story alone and everything, I still put it in my top 5 werewolf movies.
Yeah, it's a really fun movie, and if you're in the mood for like a good classic monster movie with a little bit of mystery and a little bit of now that you know the answer to the mystery, I think it's an enjoyable 80s movie. It's pretty good. I would, I think the nostalgia glasses are definitely real for these because I remember the end sequence so much when I was a kid, and I remember the watching this movie on TV like at least one Saturday afternoon a month.
Yeah. I mean, we look at it now and laugh, but I mean, your daughter was in the room during the end sequence, and I guess what I'm trying to say is she was probably the same age we were when we first saw it, and it was effective to her.
It was. And
she was hiding behind chairs and walls and asking us when the werewolf was gone. So
yeah, but she really enjoyed it, and as far as an R-rated movie, I think it's pretty tame.
Yeah, it's tamer than Jaws, and Jaws received the PG.
But it's there's a little bit of cussing, but there's nothing really outlandish. And as far as movies to watch with your kids, it's kind of a fun movie, especially around Halloween or whatever.
Yeah, big good contrast with The Howling that we'll do next episode.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, that kind of wraps up the show. We'll see you next week for The Howling.
Here's this woman with bow-legged woman.
To a new world of gods and monsters.
See you next time.
See ya.
And now, folks, it's time to say goodnight. We sincerely appreciate your patronage and hope we've succeeded in bringing you an enjoyable evening of entertainment. Please drive home carefully and come back again soon. Good night.